I want to ask you something that just crossed my mind. Would you agree or not with the thought again that just crossed my mind that just as I was saying 5 to 10 minutes ago, that we do so many things uh, prescribed in the Bible because we imitate what is heavenly on earth? Would you agree or not that one of the things we assembly under the new covenant as the people of God is to imitate God's heavenly, not just army, but family. So in that way, we're imitating them because they're together singing, praising God, and we're just imitating that imperfectly, though, but still imitating that on earth in our congregations. So in that way, well, first, do you agree with that?
I think we do to a point, and I think that's because some of the role of the heavenly host and of mankind, humankind, overlaps. We do it that way. Um, I think the other point too is I think some of this is supposed to be natural to us, but is marred by sin. And for me, proper worship of God is one of our functions as imagers of God, but it's been messed up, so we get away from it. So maybe a little bit of a both and. Sorry, did you say if it was natural? I think we were made for it, right? So there's a point where we do understand it and we want to do it, but we get held back. Does that make sense? Does that yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, life happens. We're not always there with our brethren, having life together, breaking the bread together, singing together. And God understands this, of course. There is no judgment for that. But I'm just saying how, besides what you said, being natural to us, to want us to be with each other, it's also this parallel with the cosmic picture of God's family who are gathered there because of Jesus and because families should stay together, right? So I'm the only guy from my church, from my country in the church, but that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I wish there are more people from my country, you know, but it's so diverse. So when you see that, you see the family of God resembling what is in heaven, the armies of those who are different yet united because of Christ. Okay, let me just read what I
Yeah,
got for.
actually, I remembered too. I think you're onto that. Uh, I forget which letter it's in, but Paul, the Apostle Paul, does talk about how, of course, he loves all of the brothers and sisters in Christ and who he's working with, and he's been sent to the Gentile nations. But he indicates that he always feels at home or a sense of satisfaction when he's with other Jewish Christians. It's just kind of natural. It's home for him. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing too is that you get some points, especially in the Old Testament, where God seems to point us back to proper orders of worship. And I think we miss it sometimes because of language. The words used to describe what Adam were supposed to do in the garden. I think they're normally, in most English translations, is going to say something like tend and keep. He's supposed to tend and keep the garden. Well, those same Hebrew verbs are used for what the priests do in the tabernacle. But I think because of context, we render them different, so we miss it in English. But it's the same two verbs, if I remember correctly, and doing it that way. The other side, too, we actually find this out better in Hebrews, but we find out that there are angels present when Moses gets the law on Sinai. And there's a bit of conjecture here, but I think there's a good case to it for how it goes out. What's probably happening is that Moses has entered the divine council. He goes to meet with God, right? And there are angels there, and he sees the meeting room of God, and he comes back with plans for a meeting room with God. Is that I don't think those are different things. Now you're moving from the spiritual to the material, and we don't quite, it shows up in pieces. We don't have a complete description, but there's other places that we get hints of what Moses was experiencing. And I think that plays out. And I think that's why a lot of like synagogues and churches were designed pretty much the same way as the tabernacle for years, because they believed it was a way that you were supposed to meet God. There's a reason why they put everything on the, the door on the east end and the altar on the west end, and how you move towards God and that sort of stuff. Um, it's symbolic, but it's more than symbolic. It's hard because there's a metaphysical thing that crosses the spiritual physical boundary, and it gets really hard to describe. But I think God gives us hints and looks at what the whole picture is supposed to be like. Yes.